Hey guys, this is the Unplugged Professor, and I wanted to bring it to people's attention that a few days ago, Walter Oakowitz had passed away. Walter Oakowitz was a very talented actor who did many roles both physical as well as animated, but likely we all know him for his role as Jacques Renault through Twin Peaks. With his talents and abilities, he truly did make Jacques a very memorable and fascinating character. And for that, I do thank him. And I do hope the best for his family as they process their grief. And hope the best for them, as well as friends, colleagues, and whomever Walter got to know. Thank you, Walter. Now, let's return with the episode.
I have no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange.
Hello, and welcome to the wonderful and strange Twin Peaks Logcast. I'm Kalil, and with me today is the hint of banana to my red wine.
Oh, you're going for Dick Tremaine. You're going for, I don't like the taste or sound of this, and I'm the Unplugged Professor.
Today we're looking at episode 26, a fine selection entitled Variations on Relations.
That's a definite way to describe any sort of connection in Twin Peaks.
There's a variety of relations happening in this episode. Unlike other episodes where there are less varieties and less relatedies.
Yeah, you know, the only time people have a positive, excited emotion for varieties is in like a box of chocolates. Not really in whatever we have with just the couple pair. I've made it very clear to myself in Twin Peaks, the best way to have people is away from each other.
I don't know how I feel about this title, to be honest, Professor. It feels, it's not quite like they had a thesaurus on hand, but it just feels like a bunch of empty, like, fancy ways of wording things.
Good, because we have Dick Tremaine in this episode and more prominent than usual.
Fair enough. And he is the depiction of pretentiousness. This episode is written by Mark Frost and Harley Payton.
Clearly.
Go on.
Well, it's mainly because of what you've kind of gave me as a little bit of an insight with Major Briggs and some of the lines he ends up delivering. Say, for example, when Andy is, we'll get to this more later, but Andy's writing out the special pattern found in the Owl Cave that just appeared, and Major Briggs corrects him. Is like, no, the line's supposed to go this way. He's like, how did you know? Yeah, Major Briggs, how did you know?
So how does that make it seem like it's written by Mark Frost and Harley Payton?
Because I believe that you have mentioned on this podcast before that there are people who compare Major Briggs to Mark Frost.
Mm-hmm. I really hope I'm not, like, steering you in the wrong direction, Professor. But yeah, this episode also kind of reminds me of Mark Frost in the sense that Mark Frost is known a lot of times for the more mythological elements of the series and the spiritual elements. And this episode dives quite a bit into the lodges. And some of those mysterious elements that, lore-wise, seem more up Frost's alley than Lynch's.
Yeah, well, we're going to get more into that, but I gotta say, some of the presentation I'm a fan of. At the very least, it's how I prefer exposition to be given.
Well, part of the presentation can be credited to the director of this episode, who is Jonathan Sanger. He is the producer on David Lynch's film from like the earlier 80s, The Elephant Man.
Okay.
This is his first directing in an episode of Twin Peaks, and it is his last directing on an episode of Twin Peaks.
Hey, good for him. Honestly, you started off with John, and I forget that there's other Johns in the world, because I almost thought you were going to lead into John Justice Wheeler as the director.
No, John Justice Wheeler did not direct this episode. I think it would have had a lot more Audrey content if that would have been the case. I have a feeling. Instead, we got a Log Lady intro opening us up here, and its very simple subject today is pie. What did you think of this particular Log Lady intro, Professor?
She really does like that pie. It truly is a blessing.
Are you sure she's not lying?
I don't believe that she's lying. Here's the thing. I like this intro.
What if Norma's behind the camera holding a gun aimed at the Log Lady, and, you know, the Log Lady's like, I really like pie, and I like Norma, and I respect Norma a lot, and I hope Norma likes me. And just like the gun is just aimed on her, and Norma's just like nodding, like, go on, keep talking about my pie. The cherry's good, and the huckleberry's really good. Are you sure? It's not that?
As far as the pie goes, I feel that I know somewhat of a connection, but at the same time, I think I'm drawing at straws, or in this case, drawing at pies. Think about it in this respect. There's a lot of positive affirmation given to pie. There is pie in Twin Peaks is probably the purest thing that is there. It itself, I'm surprised, may or may not be served at the White Lodge. But for how much fondness pie is given, there's a lot of fear with the log lady that she has somehow impacted those around her in a poor way, like how she sort of dealt with things, how she ends up putting her pitch in different places and hopes that the people around her are okay with her, especially the people who provide such a pie. And who knows, if we are to go down the crazed rabbit hole of maybe this connects to David Lynch somehow, maybe this pie product, this Twin Peaks, if you will, produce, there might be a little bit of anxieties given, like he gives respect to these people, but at the same time, he hopes that he has not been taken too far. I don't know if David Lynch is a director. Maybe it's the complete opposite, and he's a prima donna that demands a man to stand aside with little peanuts to always come to him at the ready, and he believes he's above everyone else. But who knows?
You know Gordon Cole. If that's any approximation to the real David Lynch, I don't know.
Kalil, that's a fictional character. People are far more... Here's the thing. People are far more interesting than whenever it comes to fictional characters.
Know. Most of the people I know are not as interesting as the log lady.
You don't know them well enough, then.
Wow. Some hard truths are being spoken. And one thing I also don't understand or don't know is this intro in particular. My gut instinct to say that this basically means nothing, that this is just flowery language celebrating the symbolism or just simplicity of pie, and it's not meant to be read into in any particular way.
I think that if it wasn't for the Norma conversation and her actually giving some insights to the emotions she has towards Norma, then I might lean towards that as well. But no, there's something about just having an emotional insight with the log lady who has only really given us, let's say, a few musings here and there and a few lines throughout the series, that at the very least, it definitely fleshes out the log lady a little bit more.
Okay.
Like, there's someone that she does genuinely care about making an impact on.
Well, some things that this episode fleshes out are Wyndham Earl, the Owls, and the White and Black Lodges.
Well, I agree that it definitely gives something about the Black and White Lodge, but I don't know how much more it gives other than motivations from Wyndham Earl.
It depends on whether you believe Wyndham Earl's statements to be true or not. I think we reveal some of the characteristics of the two lodges, which we'll get to in a moment. First, we have the second part of our spelunking adventure with Cooper, Andy, Hawk, and Truman. Yep. As they're exploring the Owl Cave more, they notice that there was tracks similar to the ones outside the power station, with the weight shift to the left foot, the break in the heel, thus signifying Wyndham Earl had been to Owl Cave between their last visit and their second right now.
Yeah, and you can also tell that there's something mysterious going on because the audio is a little bit distorted, as well as, hey, there's new stuff on the wall.
Yes.
Ain't that neat?
Yes. And Andy is directed to create a large-scale, accurate rendering of this petroglyph, of the drawing on the cave wall. And there were a few things of note on the petroglyph. We see it first on the cave wall, then we see it on a CRTV over in Wyndham Earl's area, and then we also see it
through someone's face.
Yes, someone's face, and then we also see it on the blackboard later. So some things that stand out on there to me would be that there is a giant man, a little man, many ringed circles. There's like this one area where there's like a circle with like trees around it. And then there was fire noticeably around the protruding Owl Cave signet or symbol.
Yes, that fire was there initially because that's where the pickaxe ended up hitting. So to have everything sort of branch out with the fire, we're definitely going to have a little walk with that, aren't we?
We are going to walk with that fire. Were there any particular elements of the petroglyph that you thought were interesting or you want to theorize about? There are things I would say if I could give spoilers.
I think I will drive myself mad if I look at it for too long, just because there are definitely shaping themes with the usual warbles of lines and little dots in specific spots. There's also, as you mentioned before, the ring of trees, as well as the large person, small person, that... I can't recall off memory right now, but were they hand in hand? I can't remember.
They were very much next to each other. I don't think they were necessarily presented hand in hand, but like directly next to each other.
So I think that I'm going to likely, between our viewings, look on it a little bit more.
Did you have any theorizing on the large man, little man?
No, because that could mean a lot of things.
Okay.
Person with child, it could mean we do have someone of shorter stature that is inside of the show, along with a much larger person of stature. So it could be alluding to them.
Who could it be alluding to?
Oh, well, the giant and the man from another place.
Okay, just making sure that thought had crossed your mind. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Regardless of who those people were, I think that there is one bigger question. How did the Petroglyphs get there? Mm-hmm. Like, is this something that we are to assume is done by a mystical nature inside Twin Peaks, something from the Owl Cave, something from the Owls, or maybe even Windham Earl himself?
It'd be really funny if it was Johnny Horn. That Johnny Horn, when he's not shooting the buffalo things, he just goes into the cave and just does some doodles. That everyone else looks at later like, oh my gosh, the symbolism, this must truly mean something. And Johnny Horn just like drew them over the past few years.
Well, Johnny does disappear long enough inside the show that is a possibility somewhere, I'm sure.
I think it'd be kind of funny. Later on, after they leave the cave, we get some moments with Windham Earl. How precious these moments are when we get to spend time with Windham.
Oh, yeah.
It's like when you go and you visit, like, a nice grandparent and they give you, like, cookies and, the house smells like old.
Yeah, no,
like
except
old people.
Replace cookies with beer.
And replace old people with arrows.
I mean, they're also old people.
I mean, Windham Earl's not that old. He's dashing.
It's questionable. In fact, there's a few questions that are brought up with this entire scene. Mm-hmm. But yes, please proceed, Kalil.
So Windham Earl, when we get there, is expanding upon the ideas of the White and Black Lodge to no one we really can tell at first. We don't know who he's talking to. We later do get revealed that he is talking to some random dude who we've never seen before. And unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be seeing much again.
I think that he's more so saying it out as an audience. So Leo does count. And
Leo does count as well. And maybe he's speaking to us. Maybe Windham Earl knows we're there.
Maybe.
Maybe, right? So he said that once upon a time, there was a place of great goodness called the White Lodge. Quote, gentle fawns gamboled there amidst happy, laughing spirits. The sounds of innocence and joy filled the air. And when it rained sweet nectar that infused one's heart with the desire to live life in truth and beauty. What do you think of a place like that, Professor?
I think that a place like that is definitely not only pumped in with lavish language from a thesaurus, but there's also that emphasis on known purity, something that seems so stereotypically pure.
Mm-hmm. Well, Windham Earl would say that, generally speaking, that is a ghastly place, reeking of virtue's sour smell. He said it was engorged with the whispered prayers of kneeling mothers, mewling newborns, and fools, young and old, compelled to do good without reason. Mm-hmm. It reminds me a little bit of the archetypal, stereotypical depictions of Garden of Eden in terms of Judeo-Christian heritage. In the idea of a place of perfect innocence without sin. And the part that really gets me here is the emphasis that they were compelled to do good without reason. It's a thoughtless good. Mm-hmm. The White Lodge, as Windham Earl depicts it here, is a place that can't help being good. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even really have like a free will or choice involved. Everything is just so saccharine on its own that it doesn't seem to even be capable of making those mistakes or errors into evil.
Good for its own sake, I'm sure. But I'm still leaning more on the purity end because if you know anything like fays and fawns, good is definitely a subjective term.
Right. I'm just going by what Windham Earl says. Mm-hmm. He said this place is full of fools, young and old, compelled to do good without reason.
Compelled to do good, but not inherently good.
I guess I don't necessarily see the difference in the situation. Could you explain?
Well, in truth, beings themselves don't have to be good themselves in order to do good. Good is simply a series of actions based off of one's morality. And in a place of such direct purity, being compelled to do good is almost a mindless act. I mean, what is there good to do in a place that is so pure?
Well,
like for the most part, it seems like almost like childish actions of things just being happy and gamboling about. What is the true kindness to that other than just probably people lavishing themselves with just ideas to make themselves happy, similar to Dick Tremaine?
Yeah, it's never really expanded upon here what Windham Earl means. Windham Earl says compelled to do good without reason. We don't know if it's following his metric of good, the metric of good that society at large and mankind around him views, or the sense of good that those beings in said White Lodge have.
Yeah.
Based on the disgust Windham Earl depicts, I would assume that their idea of good and his idea of good are not necessarily compatible. Or rather, I get from this conversation almost like a Nietzschean view out of Windham Earl that I think what he wants is something beyond good and evil. I think that even just the idea of pursuing virtue for its own sake, pursuing any idea of goodness, I think Wyndham Earl kind of scoffs at.
I think that it's more so when he brings out the Black Lodge and how enticed he is. I think that just everything in the White Lodge is just so dull and droll with him. Maybe there can be a sense of hint, hint, wink, wink familiarity with it, but it might also just be that sense of mindlessness is not to his overall entertainment. He enjoys a sense of conflict, if you will, and a sense of just morality is just kind of being challenged. And in truth, it almost as if he could run the Black Lodge, I mean, he probably would be very glad to be the Benjamin Horn there.
I think one thing that's very notable and potentially thought-provoking here is that he refers to the White Lodge in past tense. He says, gentle fawns gamboled there. The sounds of innocence filled the air. When it rained, right, it was a ghastly place. And he also mentions, again, once upon a time. It was something long gone. Whereas when he refers to the Black Lodge, he refers to it in present tense. He says, there's another place, it's opposite. A place of almost unimaginable power, chock full of dark forces and vicious secrets. No prayers dare enter this frightful maw. Spirits there care not for good deeds or priestly invocation. They're as likely to rip the flesh from your bones as greet you with a happy good day, and if harness these spirits in this hidden land of unmuffled screams and broken hearts. And he kind of goes on how the bearer of those powers could reorder the earth to his liking. He seems to implicitly believe that the White Lodge is a thing of the past, and that the Black Lodge is in the present.
Now, mind you, I have to bring up a question here on this. Is it a past tense, just like it's just general existence, or just more so his recognition of maybe his time inside of the White Lodge, if he ever was there or was present there or any part of there, that he just recognized what he had seen firsthand before perhaps his departure? And who knows, maybe one could consider present tense him recognizing, if not something around or near Twin Peaks, maybe Twin Peaks itself is questionably a larger Black Lodge.
So what makes you think that he's been to the White Lodge?
Again, I think that for how familiar he is with it, even more familiar than Briggs himself, I don't know where his information would go beyond it. Who knows with his time with Project Blue Book and how deep he did delve into such a place. Or, again, there might be more crazed theories on who Wyndham Earl actually is. It's fascinating.
To counter that potentially, I would say that confidence in one's knowledge of a place does not necessarily mean you actually know it any better. One could argue that Major Briggs, his complete incomprehension of where he was, his total mystery of everything that happened, the whole circumstance seems to have washed over him like a strange dream he only has fleeting memories of. That might be more real experience of the White Lodge, whereas Wyndham Earl, he recites all these stories, but who knows if he's actually experienced any of those things he's talking about. He's confident in it, doesn't mean he actually experienced it.
My general question, though, is that what would even one have for the White Lodge as far as text or tomes or information?
We know that Hawke's people, he talked about the Nez Perce having beliefs of these systems. The first time we ever heard about the White and Black Lodges were from Hawke. So there are myths and there are ideas out there. When the White Lodge and Black Lodge are spoken of by Hawke, though, he never talks of one being in past and one being in present, and Hawke makes it seem like you have to pass through the Black to get to the White. So Hawke's version and Wyndham Earl's version are very different.
Perhaps so. Now, here's a couple more things that I have to bring up to that point, Kalil. For one, I think that everyone else who talks about these sort of instances do speak about it in a dreamlike quality, almost like relapsing and kind of like thinking into it and just trying to dig and dissect it. Wyndham Earl sort of has almost like a poetic confidence with it. Not to mention, we will get a little bit of a fun conversation with, hey, here's a little biker man who's sitting inside of what will later be revealed to be a giant pond being made out of paper mache. It's the way that he talks to them that nudges at my brain. And that is the musings of how lucky he is that he has this chance to have the answer between life and death. And there's an excitability with it. There is a fascination, but Wyndham Earl, forgive me if I am incorrect, but he does seem a little bit up in his years. Like, the idea that someone else
I think you said up in his ears. You meant years. Now, I think you meant there was some weird phrasing, he's up into his ears, and I was like, what?
He is in the ear canals.
I got you. He's a little older, yeah.
Yeah, so It's the crazy question inside my head in which I think to myself, with someone so jealous of another man's death and a chance to die, can Wyndham Earl die? I assume he is man, but at the same time, there are instances where that is brought into question. Not to mention, I also can't really rely on the timeline here, because we have this man in the biker outfit. What does that biker outfit look like? The one he wore into the diner later. So
right, and this is hard because I don't want to counter too much and reveal anything that could be taken as spoilers, but there are quite a few things you're saying that I view in a different way, and I hope you don't mind these interjections and counters.
No, if there's no sense of conflict without thought, I'm simply a madman with his own
like Wyndham Earl supposedly might be. My response would be that I don't necessarily know if I detect a jealous tone from Wyndham Earl. I almost detect a sarcastic, ridiculing tone of the sense of he's waxing poetic and making this man's death to be something of an adventure of the spirit to know an answer that mankind has always been wondering. But I almost get the sense it's not a jealous envy. I don't think he necessarily wants to die. I think Wyndham Earl wants power, and I would argue that the opposite of the power he's seeking would be death. Wyndham Earl wants to extend his own life force, not diminish. So I don't think it's jealousy. I think it's more so making fun of him and kind of ridiculing him based on the way he's talking about it. And then one thing I want to mention too with the Black Lodge, going back to that sort of Nietzschean vibe that I keep getting from Wyndham Earl in this part, he mentions that in the Black Lodge, spirits are just as likely to rip the flesh from your bones as greet you with a happy good day. If we're being really particular about the language here, he does seem to insinuate that it's not a place of pure evil. Rather, it's a place where anything can happen, that the spirits are just as likely to rip the flesh from your bones as greet you with a good day.
Yay.
You could inverse that phrase. They're just as likely to greet you with a happy day as they are to rip their flesh off. So it's interesting that he kind of makes the White Lodge seem like this disgusting place where without reason, everything is sweet and kind, and it's a sort of goodness that doesn't even think about what it's doing. It doesn't have goodness for the sake of reason. There's no rationality with that place. It's just instinctual goodness. Whereas the Black Lodge has an independent, chaotic spirit that anything can happen and there's overwhelming with possibilities. I think that characteristic, again, reminds me a little bit of that Nietzschean idea. We're having some sort of will to power vibes with him, that I think it's less about jealousy of wanting to find the answers of life and death, so much as wanting the power over the things around him, the natural and the unnatural world. Again, this is just speculation for the most part. I do obviously know a little more where things go than you do, but I don't think that's factoring into what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think that as far as motivations go for Wyndham Earl, he is still, at the very least, noted as quite the madman. So his overall motivations, I think, are unclear for me for the most part and very emotional. So
would you trust his descriptions of the White and Black Lodge more than Hawk's?
Yes.
Okay. And why?
Simply because for one, I think that Wyndham Earl's total word count has been more than Hawk's. So that is one aspect. But he has been directly involved with the more mystical nature of Twin Peaks by canon with things like Project Blue Book. Meanwhile, what Hawk does in his spare time, we only have little light snippets. So I can only be more confident with something that's more present in my periphery.
Okay. Fair enough. Present in the periphery of the man inside the pond is an arrow as it shoots into his body. Right before that incident, Earl is readying the crossbow and says to Leo that he needs an arrow. Fetch me an arrow, Leo. And how does Leo respond?
He actually declines.
He hesitates, he shakes his head, and he says a very clear no. One of the first clear vocalizations we've had in a while from Leo. And why do you think Leo refuses?
I think that's the way that Leo has been through a bit of hell and back in many ways, and through the direct area of cruelty Wyndham Earl has, at the very least, Leo has a way to recognize his own anger and where it's directed. Wyndham Earl is very much a malicious master that I think even Leo Johnson can recognize and fear.
Could you add a third alliterative adjective to malicious master? I want another M adjective.
Why?
I don't know, because the 3 M's. I want the 3 M's.
Why?
He's a malicious master. You want to do another M before or after or in the middle of that? A malicious mind master? A malicious mastermind? Malicious mastermind would make the most sense. Maniacal?
I'll go with malicious mastermind.
Okay.
And no, I think that there is at least a little bit of recognition from Leo. I think that there's a fear from Leo, and there is something wanting to get out of his scenario. Because at the very least, someone wronged Leo, he strikes him. Wyndham Earl needs a pawn, so he asked a guy for a beer before burying him in a pond.
The said man in a pawn is very distraught to see Leo being electrocuted this way. Geez, don't zap the geek. He's worried that he's not going to get his beer if they keep electrocuting the geek. Plus, he seems to have a bit of genuine empathy, realizing that hurts him. But otherwise, the man seems completely out of the loop of what's going on. He says how pumped he is to see what happens and where things are going. And it's really not until the very final moments he seems to have any awareness that he's about to get killed.
I mean, Wyndham Earl did an excellent stitch job and getting the blood out of the clothes when he wore it at the diner potentially later. So, because I think that he didn't even have his bandana on in the pond. So, yeah, likely he got that disguise from that man.
So you're interpreting that to mean that the man was killed and put in the pond like a day or so before it was planted at the gazebo.
Yeah. It probably took a while to paint.
That's very
maybe had Leo paint it, because otherwise he's going to the same place in which people just wear the same clothes, same bandana, which would be fun, I guess.
I think it'd be too hard to get the costume out of where he placed the man. I know I'm inclined to believe that it's just a reused prop, reused costume. I could be wrong. I never connected the idea that it was the costume from that man, and maybe I'm misunderstanding here.
It would make sense on where he's getting his clothes from.
I suppose so, but he hasn't killed enough people to get all these outfits. At least
you
not
haven't
recently.
Found the bodies.
Well, he'd use them for the pawns. He wouldn't just let the body go to waste.
There's just more paper mache pawns. It's surprising that no one has found nearby outside Owl Cave these giant prop pawns filled with bodies.
Well, another thing about this too is that if he does kill all these people, he gets free access to the ketchup that comes out their mouths when they get shot with arrows. I did see a little bit of that dribble out of his mouth, Meanwhile, we have Major Briggs being drawn in to look at Andy's drawing of the Petroglyph. And Major Briggs seems to have a very astute knowledge of the Petroglyph because he was correcting Andy on where the line should go and how the direction should work.
Thank you, Mark Frost.
Seemingly working out of intuition more than even clear memory. At first, he doesn't get a chance to explain to Andy how he knows. Later, we find out that he had seen it somewhere. He then speculates he dreamed it, thus leading us to believe it might have been when he was briefly in where he thinks was the White Lodge. And then we get an image of potentially what he had seen, which was a shadowy figure against a white background, the shadowy figure in a pure black cloak, with an owl then flying in the silhouette head of that cloak, and a fire erupting.
Which, mind you, there's also the image of the petroglyph beyond the hood. You do not make out the face, you make out the petroglyph. It is almost as if this person is not of his surroundings. So...
What did you think of that image of the black cloak against the white background?
The Blu-rays do a great job. I wish I saw it on TV because it would probably be the strangest effect I've seen in a while on that television. But no, it definitely does give off a good strange feeling, good strange.
So do you believe that that's to be interpreted directly as what Major Briggs had seen?
This
was his dream?
Not necessarily, because this is not the last time we'll see this silhouette this episode.
This is true. Cooper brings Major Briggs in because he believes that the mysteries that he's been looking into are all complementary verses of the same song, as he words it. So he's led to believe that all these different things, they're interlocking a lot more than others seem to think they are. And he says he needs to know about Earl's involvement in Project Blue Book, to which Major Briggs says that, he has access, but there are certain moral judgments he has to consider first before deciding, which prompts Major Briggs to ask the follow-up question if this would prevent the loss of future life. When Cooper says that yes, it would, Major Briggs starts to lean a little bit more possibly to saying things, it looks like. Yeah. But at this time, we still haven't had Major Briggs come in with that information. And while Major Briggs is deliberating on what to do about the information from Project Blue Book regarding Wyndham Earl, Cooper has his mind busy looking at the poem information that's been collected. Because he finally was alerted through sheer coincidence of normal conversation at the diner about the pieces of the poems.
Their lives do walk through coincidence a lot.
Yes. And Cooper, upon looking at it, has the gut instinct to question about Leo Johnson, that it might be Leo Johnson's transcription. Sure enough, when he pulls up some of the recorded information at the sheriff's department, he's able to piece together that, yes, this most likely is Leo Johnson's handwriting that is behind these transcriptions.
Yeah, it is impressive detective work, and I'm glad that they come across that conclusion, because knowing Leo Johnson on that side...
Yeah, this is one of those moments where I think it's a mix of good detective work with the sort of spiritual intuition that the show leans into with Cooper, and it's not too much on either side. It feels as though the leap of faith that he took was grounded in the connections he was starting to make between the dots. So it was kind of a stretch to go look into Leo Johnson's handwriting for these poems, because it seems like nothing that'd be in Leo Johnson's MO. However, given that Leo Johnson appeared around the same time that Wyndham Earle appeared, that would raise some questions, and it was a good logical leap to take just to check. And thank goodness he did check on that lead.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts on Leo Johnson, Wyndham Earle, miscellany, before we get to the gazebo?
That is definitely another variation on that relation.
Which variation on which relation?
Oh, let's see, what's another title? Slaves and Masters.
Are you just going to repeat titles at me?
I'm good. I would look them all up, but I fear spoilers.
That's fair, but what's your point?
Like the point of a black widow, I simply scutter around to weave my web, if you will.
So, any others? Are you good? Is that all you got? Or we're on episode 26 here. You got a few you can recite.
I'm sure I can. But I think I'm going to take my rest at the Northwest Passage.
Okay.
In the meantime,
well, that's fair enough. Making his permanent rest is the man who just wanted a beer. He is inside of a pond, inside of a big old box, noticeably planted at the gazebo that Cooper and Annie had passed by following their little date. Cooper, at this point, is noticing some trends in Wyndham Earle's behavior, and he says to Truman, quote, "His actions of late have left me completely bewildered. He is changing the pattern of the game board." And Cooper at this time doesn't think they can really predict Wyndham Earle anymore. That he's acting out of turn. What are your feelings on that? As someone who had tried very painstakingly to understand the chess game that was being played, what do you think that at this point it seems like Wyndham Earle's just kind of going loose?
Wyndham Earle criticizes Cooper for breaking the rules, but by moves like this, we're just flipping tables now. The pieces are scattered. I feel that the honey was just slathered on all over the place before like new tiles were stuck in their place. So everything's wild now.
Honey?
Honey. You know, like from the episode Pete Martell, he had honey all over the place.
But where'd that...
If there's two chess masters facing each other, you know that they will both be slurping down like a whole little bear of honey.
Yeah,
clearly
that's
that
obvious
is the
expectation, yes.
This is the method of chess. Kalil, have you not played chess before?
The great Capablanca would drink at least 3 teddy bears of honey each time he played chess.
Except it's not a teddy bear. It's a honey bear.
It's a honey bear. Well, okay, what's the difference?
The difference is that there is a history behind the teddy bear with everything like good old Teddy Roosevelt. Meanwhile, the bear on the honey pot is just marketing and probably has a separate history that has nothing to do with Teddy Roosevelt.
What if they're more linked than you and I could ever realize? What if Teddy Roosevelt had secretly been involved in the honey industry? Big Honey
and
Incorporated.
If you guys will catch out our next podcast, in which features conspiracies that link between Theodore Roosevelt and the honey bear. I hope that you all tune into that sometime in the future, likely somewhere between the White and Black Lodge.
Welcome to the Buzz Off podcast.
I feel like we can do better than that title.
Speak softly and carry a big honey stick?
There we go. I prefer that.
That's title really, for a podcast.
I love it, though.
Okay. What Cooper doesn't love, though, is his greatest fear, that Wyndham Earle merely condescends to logic. That Wyndham Earle may, in fact, be so high up in the clouds of this thinking that he only just momentarily deigns to lower himself onto the levels of human logic. Otherwise, he's operating on pure chaos. And now, on the note...
chaos, yes.
On the note of the giant pawn is the message, next time it'll be someone you know. Do you think it will be? Do you trust Wyndham Earle's note? Or do you think he's too inconsistent to even follow through on that?
No, it will be someone that we know.
Who do you think it'll be?
This feels like a Twin Peaks question of the week situation. No, I mean, thrown under the bus in the middle of the episode.
My Twin Peaks question of the week is way less important and far more silly.
I think I'll be able to predict it, but we'll have to wait for a moment for later in this episode.
You'll say later in the episode.
I will say I think it's going to be Miss Twin Peaks.
Okay. Do you believe who's going to be Miss Twin Peaks?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Speaking of Miss Twin Peaks and someone vying to become Miss Twin Peaks, we get the first reappearance of Lana in quite a few episodes. She's at the Double R Diner speaking to her beloved Mayor Dwayne Milford, who is professing his love unto her. He says, "I'll do anything body and mind can stand. Surely the last few days and weeks are proof of that." Lana says that she wants to win Miss Twin Peaks, and he offers to coach her, but she's like, no, I want to guarantee to win. You're one of the judges. And he says, it would be wrong. She says, darling, it would be love. That's all. And what do you think of that encounter at the Double R Diner? You're rooting for Lana, right? Like, we've already established on this podcast that we, at the Wonderful and Strange Twin Peaks Logcast, Kalil and the Unplugged Professor, both unconditionally support our true queen, Lana Milford.
It makes me fear, like, for example, this clearly is a bit more of her taking advantage of a situation with her Black Widow quality definitely coming out, as previously mentioned in the prior episode. There's two emotions that I have.
Two emotions.
And one of them is just like
excitement for her behalf.
It's her looking at an opportunity and trying to seize it, and she might have that personality. But then the other one is my crazy side, my inner Earl, my maybe inner Cooper. Maybe there's a little bit of both. Wink, wink. A
little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper.
Yeah.
Black pepper, white salt, just to clarify.
Thank you. But there's just this side of me that thinks to myself, maybe there was just like, all right, let me see. In order for me to win Miss Twin Peaks, first, I have to find my way to get in bed with Dougie Milford, and that way we can have a wedding, but I'll make sure that I'll use my feminine wild to murder him in the middle of the night in order to get closer to good old Dwayne Milford. And then I'll make sure that he knows that
you lost the southern voice about halfway into this, but keep going.
It's okay. And I'll get him to help me win Miss Twin Peaks. Like, there's like this elaborate power play that she wanted to go into.
What's the next move after that?
The world.
Because then clearly she kills Dwayne Milford, right? And then she moves on to Dick Tremaine.
Well, there's no one higher at the moment until, like, I think that for now...
Hey, Golden Co. Gonna go to the top of the FBI. Or near top, I don't know.
Near top, whatever. But again, one day she shall rule the world, I'm sure. But in the meantime, no, I feel stronger for the first option than the second.
That's fair. In the meantime, presiding over the Holy Trinity are the three Miss Twin Peaks judges. And as you could have predicted, it's Doc Hayward, Dwayne Milford, and Pete Martell.
Yeah, those three, very well known.
They are three people who are trusted, probably more than they should be, by the community of Twin Peaks.
I mean, I'm just glad that it's not something like Ben and Jerry Horn, along with, who else? Dick Tremaine.
Previously, all three of the judges have been Renault brothers, but something happened to them, so I guess we can't have those three. Yeah, it was Jean, Jacques, and Bernard. They were the three judges.
Regardless, it's a group of people.
It would have been really funny if the three judges who normally went were like people who are dead now in the story. Like Leland used to judge at one point. Blackie used to judge at one point.
Why are you choosing all sorts of people who are more
dead.
in Canada than they are at Twin Peaks?
I don't think Leland was in Canada that much.
Yeah, but like John and Blackie.
I'm just thinking of dead people, okay?
I think of dead people.
Laura wouldn't have been able to judge yet. She wasn't old enough. Ditto for Maddie. She wasn't even around.
This feels like a diet version of The Sixth Sense.
Okay, whatever. And speaking of The Sixth Sense, Ben is having a sixth sense about the environment. When he is aware more than other people of the dire need in this age to reform Miss Twin Peaks and make it something that could possibly contribute to a better future. He says, And I quote the Ben himself. The age of the ogling swimsuited jiggle festivals is dead. Miss Twin Peaks is now a celebration of the totality of a woman's qualities. Beauty has taken on a broader definition to include mind, spirit, values, ideas. And the Mayor Milford just pipes in, "What's he selling? What are you selling?"
I am selling Benjamin Horn carrot sticks.
So, of course, immediately as this is being brought up, Pete is skeptical. This wouldn't happen to have anything to do with your opposition to the Ghostwood project. And Ben's like, I resent that implication.
I really wish that it was on the other side. I was like, it is entirely involved with that.
So, another situation where it's up to you as the viewer, Professor, do you think Benjamin Horn is earnest about trying to improve Miss Twin Peaks, to have it be more about the values of the women themselves, the totality of their vision, and try to speak about a meaningful topic about the forests? Or do you believe this is yet another way that he is trying to contrive the situation to his own benefit?
I think that that's a question for a later time with good old Dick Tremaine, which I'm sure we'll be talking about later in this podcast, where we delve deeper into whether Ben is true or not with his intentions. But nonetheless, I'm always game for any sort of competition being more than just the swimsuit section.
That makes sense. We here support Lana Milford in all of her qualities. All of her qualities. And
it's about love already now, isn't it?
Yes. And as far as the qualities of the candidates this year, we know that we are looking at, for sure, Lana, Shelley, Donna, and Nadine, because they're all there in attendance to sign.
Yeah, Nadine. She's there, isn't she? Nadine is competing.
So Nadine shows up there with her loyal boy toy, who thankfully is in one piece, Mike Nelson, a.k.a. Snake. But he looks refined. He looks like he's a learned man. He has gone through the trials and tribulations of dating an older woman, but he wants to be very clear to Bobby, it's not what he thinks.
It's not what he thinks. Which, by the way, I don't know how I feel about, referring to Snake as the boy toy. I mean, as far as I know that they have a very clear sexual relationship, and that reaction from Bobby after Snake makes it clear, it's I may not be using the exact words, but it is a fine martini of that experience through age, as well as the superhuman power that is Nadine.
I like to believe that it was nothing actually sexual he whispered in Bobby's ear. It was just like, she can open all the tight lids on jars. And Bobby's just like, whoa! Just realizing the utility of having someone that strong in the household. When you get those nasty, those jars, you have to run under hot water because it's just sealed too tight.
Regardless of your jar epidemic there, I think that it's okay about open sexual relationship. But again, I think that there is a area of fondness between the two of them.
Yeah.
At this time.
Yeah.
Which I still am conflicted on, but nonetheless, they're a unit.
It seems to be a healthier relationship than what Bobby has with Shelley.
It is.
Which is, I say that.
We only say that because so far this has been a happy relationship.
Yes, this is true. But that is all we have to compare. Meanwhile,
the one
not
other
so happy,
relationship in Twin Peaks.
Not so happy is Bobby and Shelley, though. We have a scene earlier at the Double R where Bobby says he's been thinking a lot about the future and what it takes to get ahead. And he comes to the conclusion that the secret to success is that beautiful people get everything they want.
Yeah, no, clearly that is the case because everyone in Twin Peaks is successful.
Well, the beautiful ones.
All the people in Twin Peaks are successful.
I mean, you trying to say everyone in Twin Peaks is beautiful?
Yes. Everyone in Twin Peaks is beautiful.
Wow.
It's true.
How heartwarming.
It shouldn't warm the heart.
But the most beautiful have the most success, according to Bobby's theorem.
So they are all the most successful.
No, on the scale, the objective measurement of beauty that Bobby has ascertained, he is the eye, he is the beholder. He knows when he looks upon others the numerical data of their beauty.
Kalil,
the higher that beauty number.
Kalil, for all the times that Bobby has been right, you truly do trust this numerical scale?
No.
Instead of the Unplugged Professor,
I don't
has
trust
been
either
right
of you.
all the time?
I don't trust either of you.
No.
Bobby says that they need to take advantage of Shelley's beauty, and then he somehow believes that her winning Miss Twin Peaks is going to be the secret to their long-term success. shaky foundation if there ever was one,
Yeah.
but Shelley is being pushed into doing Miss Twin Peaks. Norma at least was polite about it.
Yeah.
Bobby, he grabs her
Bobby,
arm.
I'm in charge.
He grabs the arm and he says, don't argue with me. Bobby's in charge. And the way he phrases it, he says, we have to enlist by this afternoon. Enlist. It's like a military procedure. It's not sign up.
Well, that's the thing. It's the difference between education and training. Education,
Yes.
you end up being told something and you can perceive it how you will. Training is making sure, no, this is how things are going to go. Get ready for your regiment, soldier.
I think Bobby's showing a little bit of his father's militancy without having necessarily the positive aspects of
Not
his
the
father.
positive aspects, not the
Just
experience.
the commanding,
command.
demanding tone. Because when our first impressions of Major Briggs was at the dinner table when he, slapped the cigarette out of Bobby's hand, was very forceful. We know that in the household, Major Briggs was a very stern and strict father.
Yeah.
And I think that Bobby has taken that upon himself to treat Shelley like that. Like she's the child he's controlling, which, of course, has some concerning elements to it. Meanwhile, Bobby himself is obviously a no high pedestal. He's still doing Ben's dry cleaning at this point. That seems to be his main occupation.
At this point, I feel that Bobby certainly has... Bobby has been an iffy figure. He's been a little bit slippery. He has had a problem with loyalty. But right now, we are getting into full throttle, kick the puppy scenario.
Yeah.
In which we are making sure that Bobby is shown to be not exactly the most kindest and considerate relationship type person. So...
Which leaves an opening in Shelley's heart for a new man to possibly step in.
Yep.
Picture this.
Yep. Nope.
Double R Diner.
Nope.
Booth.
Nope.
Two individuals sitting next to each other in front of what looks like 5 to 6 to 7 plates of pie. May we share the pie?
May we share the pie with these two other people, otherwise eat all 5 or 6 or who knows, maybe there's 15 pies at the ready for these people.
So
why didn't they just get the full pie and plates?
I don't
This is
know.
a waste of plates.
Yeah, honestly, just get a whole pie. Annie and Cooper joining them for this pie and dine.
I mean, it is noted at the beginning of the episode that the Double R does serve all sorts of flavors of pie.
Right.
So maybe they just want a little bit of different pies for different occasions,
Gordon Cole, waxing poetic. I think I've said the phrase waxing poetically 3 other times in this podcast.
You really like the
It's
term
the
waxing.
phrase of the day.
Just wax.
It's a phrase of the day.
Wax that poetry.
And he says that they say that love makes the world go round. And, reminds me a lot of a certain Log Lady intro we had a while ago about love being the blood of the universe.
It just reminds me of that Log Lady intro we had about the pie. Pie's good.
It's if you do combine the two.
Combine the
Is
two.
love the blood of the universe? IDK, but pie's good.
Why can't there be a love pie flavor?
Gordon Cole says, I'm about ready to leave Twin Peaks, and I don't know when I'm going to return. And I want you to know that meeting you has been more than a privilege. It has touched my heart.
No, lower it down like he's talking.
That's true. I don't know how to do a low David Lynch voice.
Like what we call a person voice.
I'm about ready to leave Twin Peaks, and I don't know when I'm going to return. And I want you to know that meeting you has been more than a privilege. It has touched my heart. Is that better?
Yeah,
Getting there. Yeah, about a
Getting
couple of years, I'll be just spot on with that.
Oh yeah, just commit to the voice.
So, on one hand, it's Gordon Cole talking to Shelley. On the other hand, Gordon Cole's literally played by David Lynch. It's hard not to read into this. David Lynch is saying, I'm about ready to leave Twin Peaks. I don't know when I'm going to return.
Yep.
Considering we know this show ends in a few episodes, and we know that Twin Peaks eventually does return, I think it's interesting. So I do read this situation as, most importantly, yes, it's Gordon Cole to Shelley. But also the secondary layer of this is David Lynch saying Twin Peaks is ending soon, and he wants the audience to know that it's been a privilege and has touched his heart to see the fan response to the show.
So we are Shelley Johnson, and
We are Shelley Johnson.
He wants us to know that he would just feel very beaten up if he doesn't kiss us.
He wants to kiss
He wants-
the Twin Peaks fan group.
Let's kiss all of us.
I mean, if we're gonna be anyone, I'd rather be like Shelley. If we have to be represented by a character on this show, probably Shelley's a good candidate.
Shelley's a good character, but at the same time, as you said before,
Is Bobby a stand-in for the mistreatments of the series?
If this was a different character, let's call it just a John Justice Wheeler.
Yes,
he
wants to kiss John Justice Wheeler.
if Goran Cole was played by someone that was not David Lynch, I probably would be a little bit less bothered.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just feels like a strange relation, just being like, I need to kiss you before I go.
Yeah, I've always felt a little bit leery whenever I see a writer or a director make themselves a character in the fiction and then have romantic scenes with actresses.
Yeah.
This is obviously by no means the worst. This is a simple kiss. And it's not even like a passionate makeout session or something. It obviously gets way weirder when there's, sexual acts involved.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that can happen.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that a writer and director can't have pure intentions. At the same time, I think it deserves scrutiny whenever that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't known it to happen with a female director yet. It might have been a thing that happened. It's usually going to be a male director with an actress of some kind.
There are a lot of movies out there, so I would
probably,
say,
hey,
there's a likelihood
being a creep
it
is
has
an equal
happened.
opportunity to all genders.
Every type of person.
Every
can be
type of person
creepy.
can give off a bad vibe. Now, the question is, does David Lynch give off a bad vibe in this situation?
Don't know the guy enough. Like, it's just more so me with an absent sort of space for where Goran Cole and David Lynch are, that I kind of look at the situation, and it definitely does kind of like transport me outside of the medium, in which I'm just looking at this situation and think to myself, huh.
Yeah, I know some fans really enjoy this moment and enjoy the Gordon Cole Shelley interactions. I will put myself out there to say that I'm at the very least on the fence. And it's just because of David Lynch being who he is, the director of the show. No matter how comfortable the actress was, it still just feels a little weird to have this happen. And that's just something that's my own opinion.
Yeah.
So and it sounds like you're in a similar place.
It's always that complication where
It also doesn't feel natural for the character. Like, it feels like very abrupt. I mean, it's been set up, but also like
it's been set up
in one conversation. So.
I'll take it into the consideration primarily since David Lynch was not the writer of this episode, was not the director of the episode.
Mark Frost is hooking his boy up.
Please don't say that. I'm going to assume that the attention was character based.
Yeah.
Until proven otherwise.
Right.
So I think that I'm fine with it. But in other instances where you see things like directed, written by the same character who is getting things like that, that's when I kind of draw my line.
So we are both on the fence looking at opposite sides.
Yeah.
But we're not firmly planted on, off the fence either.
I'm going to shove you off, though, because this is my fence.
I will say, though, I will commit, I do enjoy the lines that are uttered during this moment, where very famously, as Gordon Cole is kissing her, there's a record scratch. Bobby enters to see this happen, and he asks, what's going on?
Well, you are seeing a kiss from a 3/4 point view.
No. We got to get the wording exactly as it is.
You are the one who writes down this stuff. I'm the one who paraphrases.
I was going to say it, then I breathed, and then you jumped in with the incorrect.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
You are witnessing a front 3/4 view of two adults sharing a tender moment. And then as Bobby is still reeling from the situation, take another look, Sonny, it's going to happen again.
I also just love that he just leans in saying that it's not as if he's ever seen a kiss before, like this situation. The thing is that Shelley, though she has like a look of like, there's not really too much reservation about the situation.
She goes in for the second one in front of Bobby, which, I mean, what do you think of that?
I mean, their relationship was based off of them having a relationship outside of, I imagine, did Shelley know about Laura Palmer?
We don't know.
You don't know, okay. That is the point that's very questionable. Not to mention the shenanigans Bobby has been up to in his try to
Bobby was
pull.
certainly involved with Laura beyond kissing.
Yeah. I mean, what Bobby has ended up trying to do and try to pull, he can be as angry as he wants.
I can almost guarantee you that Laura knew about Shelley. Well, we'll see if they mention it in the secret diary, but I think Laura knew a lot about what was going on.
This is all I know about Shelley Johnson. She's exactly this size. This is the school that she went to. This is her favorite food. Just like a weird dossier, like specifically Shelley focused.
Right. Maybe you could even say that Laura would know enough about Shelley to write a poem. The way that Pete knows about Josie.
Oh, God. This scene.
We open up
is
upon
loaded.
Pete mourning Josie the only way he knows how, which is to try to unravel a rhyme scheme about her while playing chess. Eventually, like Donna's sister, falling upon a verse on blooming in flowers.
Yep, he ends up forgetting where that verse is, like how we forget where the sister ever was.
Doom, gloom.
Do you have the sort of poem that
Not the whole thing. I know how it ends.
Yeah, I think that how he's trying to make something beautiful, and he's trying to find a rhyme, and he finds words like doom, fume, and gloom.
And then he finally realizes flowers bloom.
Yep, a bloom. And it's just fascinating that those are the first words that come to mind, along with room for some reason.
You can read into it. I just think it's a joke that he doesn't think of the obvious rhyme. Because when you're looking for a rhyme that has that goes with flowers.
I think that if it wasn't for the fact that these are room is pretty neutral, but the other ones seem to be a little bit negative, that there might be a little bit of Pete, who also likely knows a little bit more about Josie and her background, judging from Catherine Packard, that he knows that there are darker elements with her that are sort of under the surface level, but he still does honor Josie to a point. He does still recognize that he does care and finds her a flower abloom.
There were elements of Josie that are about as dark and mysterious as the puzzle box that Catherine's trying to open up.
Oh, she's showing it to everybody at this point.
She is showing it up to everyone.
Truman comes around, and I know that while we were watching the episode, they were getting deeper in their conversation as they're trying to process the loss of Josie. And we'll get more into that conversation with it. But once she just procures the box, they're like, hey, maybe the secrets are inside this box. Please open it. Right. I'm just imagining her going all over the place being like, as you said, with Toad.
Yeah. Hey, Toad, I noticed the way you were dissecting the meatloaf at the Double R Diner, and it made me think that there might be something I have that you could dissect that would be of use to both of us.
Yeah. No, she's desperate to get this box out. But when she's not distracted by the box, she does actually recognize that, at the very least from what she tells Truman, she can't come to hate Josie. Josie is someone that, if Catherine didn't hate her and how she treated Josie, I'd hate to see how she treats someone she hates.
Yeah, there's multiple layers here. It really depends on whether you think Catherine is telling Truman just what she thinks Truman would want to hear, or if she genuinely is saying what she feels. I don't think she would have any reason to tell the truth. That's a weird thing to have to say with Catherine, but I just don't think that...
It'd be the weirdest lies, though.
It'd be a weird lie, but also... It's just kind of tell him what he wants to hear, get him out of her hair. Catherine is no stranger to being in the shady elements of the law. She did have a hand in Josie's death. I don't think she wants Truman snooping so hard that he realizes that, because that could be really bad for her if he finds out anything involving that.
Yeah.
We're not even sure that Andrew Packard's life has still been proved. People don't know Andrew Packard's alive yet. So I think for Catherine, just to shut him up, make him feel good, it's like, yeah, I didn't hate her either. She's really nice. Oh, yes. And then just kick him out the door.
I fear that not only does she not do that, she tries to shove the puzzle box in.
That's true.
But there's also that sort of situation that would likely make someone potentially more reliant on another person being like, yeah, you know what, Catherine? This made me feel good today. We should talk again sometime. And there's internal screaming on her end. So I don't know if that would necessarily work out in her favor.
I'm sorry, I'm busy. Always. I do not have any time ever in my schedule.
I run the... Oh, wait, that burnt down. I run the house.
I'm killing weasels and ferrets and other
I
animals.
am personally killing the weasels and sending them to Jerry.
I have a lot of them to kill off to feed Jerry, who is alive still, maybe. But yeah, no, I guess it depends again. If you think Catherine's telling the truth, why would she lie? Why would she tell the truth? Who knows? I don't know. I think there's moments where she hated Josie, but I think...
Well, there's a difference between hating someone in a moment and hating someone in general.
What is hating someone in general if not hating someone for several moments interlinked?
I think that hate can take on different forms, and two of them is the instance, like the action of hate, as opposed towards just a full emotional feeling. Like some people will feel happy around another person, some people will feel calm, and some will feel pure hatred.
I think she felt pure hatred for moments and then stopped. I'm not referring to the momentary emotion of hatred. I am referring to almost the status or the variation on relation, basically, is what I'm getting at here. I think that she genuinely hated Josie, especially around the times where she was learning that Josie had been the one to try to kill her brother.
I think that, if anything, it might even be displaced hatred or just frustration with Eckert, because she shows knowledge enough that Josie was just someone who tried to fit a mold for a situation.
But I think it's the same way she never really hated Ben. Like, I think after a while, like maybe for a while she hated Ben, but like I think after a while, Catherine's the type of person to realize that she is just as manipulative and conniving, and in another situation, she would do a lot of the same things that Ben did to her or Josie did to her. So I think there's a sense for Catherine that it's probably hard for her to hate these people when she realizes that they're just playing the same game she's playing. You know, her and Andrew are no strangers to the types of things that Eckert and Josie were up to. Maybe not as bad, maybe worse. We don't really know the full details.
Yay.
But I almost think that the empathy here is born out of a dark place of commiserating their own evil deeds, in the sense of Catherine realizes that Josie's no worse or better than she was. She just happened to lose, whereas Catherine didn't lose.
Oh, boy.
And as Catherine has been someone who has been in the dirt, who almost lost, who almost died in a fire and had to reincarnate herself as Tojimura, so I think that she understands that struggle and the tactics that go with that.
You know, some people end up get stuck in a burning building and eat tuna fish somewhere, and other people reenact the Confederacy. We all have our ways to heal from traumatic moments.
And according to Dr. Jacoby, they're all perfectly healthy.
All of them. Every single last one of them.
Every single thing you can do.
Everything you're doing great.
Briefly, just want to touch, before we leave here, touch on the lore we got on Pete Martell.
We not only get a little bit of lore from Pete, but this box just kind of like keeps trading hands in more ways than one. But yes, please proceed.
The puzzle box reminds Pete Martell of one that he saw in Guam when he was, quote, taking a little R&R with the Doolittle twins.
Yeah, whoever those are.
There was a monkey show you wouldn't believe.
I wouldn't.
And Dale Doolittle. Now, he was the larger of the two. Come to think of it, for twins, they weren't all that much alike.
That's what we call fraternal.
So, you know, Catherine's just staring off in the unknown, just like yelling at him like, please stop.
Please stop. No.
I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more about the Doolittle twins and the monkey show and exactly what was going on in this situation in Guam.
And perhaps you can learn more in the future book release of There's a Fish in My Percolator, written by Pete Martell.
Oh.
Which will never come out. But
yeah, because the actor passed away. But
nonetheless. I think that there can still be a writer that can write for Pete Martell.
Yeah, it's true. No, you're right. They could just retroactively, posthumously give some more Pete Martell stories.
Yes.
We talked recently about the books we'd like to have seen. I don't think that's the book we'd really want the most.
I want it for the title
Maybe
only.
it's the book we need. You know, like we think we want the other books, but this is really the one we deserve.
This is what we have earned.
Yes.
For better or for worse.
But yeah, you're right. Pete enters into the room when Truman's looking at the box, and he utters the most cursed phrasing he possibly could. Wowee Bob.
Oh, boy. Don't say that name around here.
Don't say wow, Bob. Don't say any of those sort of things around us.
Maybe one of them is Bob. You know, he saw the behind the disguise. What did you do to Josie? Well, it's Truman. Truman put him in the doorknob because he's the Bob.
Could be.
That'd be.
Pete Martell says, "Have we got some beauties in this contest this year?" And I mean. Sure, Pete.
He probably says some other things, and he probably muses on something. But I think the most important part is that he just straight up drops the box. This puzzle box, this noted box that somehow has no lock or key. It is weighted in one way or another, and it is undone, at least the first step, in the cheapest way possible.
Yeah, I figured this would upset you.
Yes!
From a narrative standpoint, that the only way...
From a puzzle box enthusiast standpoint.
Completely random chance it just dropped and fell right in the way it
This world is filled with coincidence.
Or lazy writing. Which one do you call it? Do you generally think it's a criticism of the show? Like, do you dislike that moment?
I will say this. For one, it is a narrative shortcut in order to try to get into the next point of the box without seeing someone just finagle around, because the weight of a box and how it moves and how a puzzle box is entertained by a character is I would imagine something that would take a while to actually entertain an audience with. So this is just a quick shorthand to try to get to the next step of the box. I get it. I understand it. But again, as someone who likes puzzle boxes, seeing it dropped, it bothered me. So story-wise, it's okay. It's fine. I get it. For me personally...
It's fine, he says, huddled into the corner in the darkness, rocking himself back and forth.
You don't have to call me out like this in the podcast. We don't have cameras on us for a reason. So I can have this comfort spot.
Listeners, don't tell the professor about the secret recorded versions that I send only to our true fans who have responded to every question by emailing us at snakeeyedreams@gmail.com.
Don't email us.
Twitter tweeting us at snakeeyedreams1.
Leave me alone.
The numeral 1, as in... I have one extra deleted scene on
Let me
video format that proves evidence of the professor's cowardice.
Let me just waddle in my misery alone.
What do you think of the second puzzle box, the internal puzzle box?
The double puzzle?
You've done some research.
I did some light research, and right now... Okay, guys, here we go. So it's a series of moon cycles. At the bottom, there's a new moon, and at the top, there is a full moon.
Where's the breaking dawn? We're looking at Twilight sequels, right? New moon, breaking dawn.
Keep going.
Vampire's Kiss, starring Nicolas Cage.
Yep. All these are true canon titles.
Nosferatu 4. This one sucks because it's like a blood-sucking pun.
I think everyone got that, Kalil. I think every single one of us got it.
Well,
and unfortunately, I don't want people knocking at our doors in fury, so I think I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
And we're gonna just talk about the moon.
Alrighty.
So it seems to be connected to a form of zodiac. I assume, at least the majority of it looks very much like the phases of the moons are compared to the zodiac. And having zodiac added to the various mystical elements of the stories in Twin Peaks, not too surprised on. Now, the new moon looks like it might be Aries. It just doesn't have the usual Venus I'm used to. It seems to be closed off towards the bottom a little bit easier. But elsewise, the waning crescent is Sagittarius. The third quarter is Taurus. The waning crescent is Gemini. The full moon is Libra. The waning gibbous is Pisces. The first quarter is Cancer. And I left something out of this, and that is the waxing crescent. Do you know why I left out the waxing crescent?
Why, Professor?
Because it looks like a paw.
You look like a paw.
I look like a paw. I can't find any symbols that are close to that, and just searching around, I didn't want to keep us from doing the podcast for a while, so I'm probably going to try to dig even deeper, but it just looks straight up like a big old circle with 4 smaller circles around, like a little paw.
If you find anything between now and next episode, plop some information in here.
It's not in any zodiac, I know, but I'll try my best, and I'll go insane trying, yay. And we actually do end the episode on one of these moon phases. Do you recall?
I do.
Do you know which moon phase it was?
It looked like it was a waning something. Waning gibbous, is that a term?
You are completely off because that's the third quarter.
Dang it.
There was it was a half a moon.
I learned this in my astronomy class at college.
And that connects itself to Taurus as a zodiac symbol.
I don't remember the name of my professor anymore, though, so I'd apologize to him.
You should apologize to me.
I think his first name was Tony.
My first name is not Tony.
Tony, if you're listening to this, I enjoyed your class. Yeah, I had to take a required science elective at the college for my general education, even though I knew I wasn't going to need it. But I took it, and I looked at the options. It was like, biology, I don't want to dissect anything. I like animals too much. Chemistry, that was my worst class in high school. Astronomy, dude, I want to go to space. And I took your class, and you tried to teach me the phases of the moon. And instead, I gave you the proverbial mooning by learning nothing and by forgetting all of it. And I learned nothing of use in your class, but not through your fault. It was me, not you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. If you ever find this, Tony. Or just Tonys in general. If any Tony wants to accept this apology, they may. Hopefully I myself get an apology in the future. But right now,
no. You're looking at me like I'm supposed to apologize to you. No.
But no, the image of Taurus has come, so whatever that may mean for this situation, whether that was just the symbol of the man who died, just like, I was born around this time and now I'm dead. Or maybe that's around the time I'm dead. Who knows? Overall, though, it definitely is enticing imagery, to say the least.
Well, you might find that imagery enticing. But you know what I find enticing?
No?
The presence of Dick Tremaine in this episode.
You know, it turned into a question, no, and now it's turned into an answer, no. No.
Like Leo Johnson saying no to me, I say yes to Dick Tremaine.
Oh, God, no.
So Dick Tremaine, one of my favorites of season 2. One of my favorite new characters of season 2. Not because he's the deepest character, not because he's the most sympathetic character, but because the actor and the performance always puts everything into it. And I enjoy the sophistication.
Oh, yeah, he puts it all into this episode's role.
Rest in peace, Dick Tremaine's nose. Rest in peace. The concierge is going to help him set up for tonight because Audrey's in Seattle.
Yeah,
I assume the
isn't
concierge is Randy. I like to believe.
We didn't see Randy in the
didn't
shots,
see him.
so we're just going to assume, maybe?
It's an assumption. Like, whenever they mention a concierge and the concierge is not visible in front of us, I always believe in my heart it's Randy.
Which means Dick Tremaine is wrong to complain because he kind of like gives that little begrudging sound.
I think it's out of ignorance. I think once he meets Randy, he'll come to assume and understand this is a man of quality.
Has Dick Tremaine stopped his ignorance at any point?
I think you're ignorant of how unignorant he is. He does show some tact around Benjamin Horne. Benjamin Horne, as you've mentioned before, is the much stronger, much more successful variant of what you think Dick Horne is. Dick Horne.
Dick Horne.
Wait, if you're to combine their names.
No. No, we're not going to do that.
Dick Horne with an E.
I hope you're proud of yourself.
Horne.
Do we have, like, is there a button in which we're writing down this is an explicit podcast? That we should warn that no children should
they have
be
a thing where I can select it, and I usually don't.
You should probably do that.
At the same point, I wouldn't consider it we don't even swear, really. We just say the names of characters in the show. The show's not for kids. We're more appropriate than the show is. Let's just say that how it is. Anyway,
as we were talking about Benjamin Tremaine.
Yes, he had some tact enough to argue that while a nose is a small price to pay in the service of the greater good, he does hear Ben, make a mention that he'll help pay any medical expenses. At which point, Dick Tremaine adds, one might also think that workers' compensation, some variety will be involved. And then, of course, Ben says, sure, I'll give you some workers' comp. Capital. And then Dick Tremaine smiles. I will alert my attorney.
And quickly makes his way out.
He makes his way out very quickly before anything can change in the situation. His hands are like way up. Compared it to Mother Teresa.
Yep, like praising to Mother Teresa. Oh, thank you kindly, great Lord. I shall go speak well of you in your name.
In a similar way, Ben Horne is wanting celestial assistance to be good because as he pulls out his carrot, he remarks that sometimes the urge to do bad is nearly overpowering.
And that is where it continues to edge at me. Like, maybe Ben is trying to turn a new leaf, or maybe he's just recognizes that whatever front he's trying to pull, it's definitely...
Yeah, you could interpret, because he says it to himself, right?
Yeah.
So he has no reason to talk to himself and put on an act. So you either assume, like you said, one, he's saying that to himself because he genuinely doesn't want to do bad things, and he's reassuring himself he needs to keep this in check, or he knows that his Tojimura level disguise might soon start falling. Mm-hmm. Interesting to think either way.
Regardless, he gets his comfort carrot out and he begins enjoying that.
And we get our proverbial comfort carrot in the form of the wine tasting scene. One of the moments of levity in this rather serious episode.
There are all sorts of visual moments that are a lot of fun, but I've got to say, Dick Tremaine, I do absolutely adore some of the delivery with this, especially with how he does behave around someone like Lana Milford as opposed to Lucy, even with the very first line, it's like... Lana. Lucy.
So he has those two pour the wine, and he makes an offhand comment that they're going to start with red wine. I'm not there yet. Not there yet.
I cut you off because you're going to get there, and that's the point. In which, everyone gets a little red wine, Andy begins to gargle it down.
Yes.
And it is already in his mouth. It is far too late.
And Dick Tremaine says to spit it out
Spit
anyway.
it out.
Spit it out.
Spit it out, boy.
And Andy does, obediently. And when they have the beginning of this, he makes mention that there's something they should do before they drink it. And Lana Milford correctly ascertains they smell it. And Dick Tremaine's very pleased. Very good, Lana. And he looks so pleased, so happy, as he invites everyone to take a deep and full inhalation of the wine.
And for some reason, Dick Tremaine, instead of being at the rim of the glass, or even, I'll permit, a little bit into the glass in order to get the full aroma, no, he dips his nose in like a freaking chicken nugget.
He wets his bandage, unfortunately. The wine will interact with the wound.
He is drinking the wine through his nose.
And later, when we come back, we have a little bit of interlude. Then we return to the scene later in the episode. They've begun to taste the wine. Dick Tremaine asks what they've been tasting and experiencing.
It tastes a little woody.
And Dick Tremaine, no, not really.
It tastes like a banana.
Yes, there is a hint of banana. That is the metachloric acid. Very good.
And chocolate.
Yeah, yes, Andy, there's chocolate too. Great interactions. Love it. Love it. See, Dick Tremaine, he's a man who wears his heart in his sleeve. When he's happy with someone, you know it. When he's not happy with someone, you know it.
I've been to some wine tastings. I'm sure that wine tasting like this exists. I would hate it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You drink wine and I don't.
I drink wine.
So would you agree that the only kind of wine there is red wine?
The only kind of food and drink you should have is not wasted. And clearly, I do not trust a man who believes that he can just jokingly talk about wine without fully partaking of the experience. I don't care. I don't care if everyone's slosh by the end, man. Like, in truth, if you're going to have some wine, stop spitting in the bucket.
So your problem was the spitting.
Yes.
Okay, so the inhaling and the savoring, the swishing it around, that's all good.
That's all fine. That's all good.
Spit.
It's a spittle.
Understand.
It is.
Understand.
It is wasteful.
I understand. They actually drink the wine. Lana says, I never knew wine could have so many different qualities. And to that point, Dick Tremaine, seizes the opportunity, compares drinking a good wine to a symphony. He then turns to Lucy, asks what her reaction is, and she promptly spits in his face. So disgraceful. So hurtful.
I know.
Someone she
to
used to have
someone
feelings for.
It's so disgraceful that she has to waste good wine on such a person. Like, this is worse than the bucket.
Let us agree that it is disgraceful.
It is disgraceful because overall, Dick Tremaine does not deserve any of this wine.
I didn't see any wine at the Hayward dinner table tonight.
I also didn't see daughters at the
I
Hayward
didn't see
dinner
either of
table.
Donna's sisters who have disappeared into the ether.
It's okay. They went into the hole in Twin Peaks.
The same place where Sylvia Horne is. Just, in the hole.
Yep, everyone's in that hole.
Donna asks, the mom, Elaine Hayward, how she knows Ben Horne. Just immediately, first spoken words of that scene. Mm-hmm. It's a real casual conversation, wouldn't you say?
Casual conversation, passing the view. I just love how, she just, really goes in heavy. It's just like, so... Benjamin Horne. And then Doc Hayward is just quickly, oh, yes, remember, darling, the charity with this name.
Can I make a confession at this time?
You are actually the son of Benjamin Horne.
I don't particularly like, subjectively, the personality of Doc Hayward. Mm-hmm. Like, from a standpoint of morals and good character, he's seen as this upstanding individual. But I think back on the situation that happened between him and Albert, when Albert just wanted to do an autopsy, and Doc Hayward would basically get in this man's way to let him actually do his work. Mm-hmm. And the autopsy that he did actually proved very useful to helping Laura's situation. Mm-hmm. But Doc Hayward was so rooted in this situation where they couldn't even touch the body hardly. It was disgraceful that he wouldn't allow basic investigative procedures to happen. And now we're getting the situation where he's so adamantly hiding things and lying things to his basically adult daughter at this point. If she's not 18, she is very near 18. In my opinion, she deserves to know the truth about these situations.
I think that what Doc Hayward does really emphasizes the illusionary feeling of Twin Peaks, as we've talked about with Truman before, believing that things are pure and good and they got protected. I think Doc Hayward is doing a Bookhouse Boys job of this situation, just trying to
cover it up.
Cover it up. Things need to stay less complicated in order for the better of, well, their personal community.
Which is where someone like Doc Hayward, to me, doesn't seem like a very trustworthy moral agent. He'll shame Andy and Dick Tremaine over their fears about little Nicky, but he only really likes to give out the truth on other people's deals. He doesn't like to actually tell his own family the truth about their lives.
He fears that it will likely be worse, I imagine.
And I understand that there's some things you don't want to say recklessly, but it's clear at this point Donna knows. You can't just pretend that it's not happening. Like,
just keep eating your peas and she'll forget about it.
Yeah, just bring up Miss Twin Peaks and move on. So we totally don't think that anything more is going to happen. Donna's not going to ask any more questions. She's going to drop it now.
Yep.
Okay, Annie, ready to talk about Annie?
No.
Okay, you can take your time.
Okay, I think I'm emotionally ready now.
All right, so we are back at the Double Diner for probably the Double Diner. The Double R Diner for I think the third or fourth time in this podcast. And we have Cooper coming in, has some very thirsty and hungry officers that he has to request coffee and donuts for.
2 black, 2 white, no sugar, please.
And that is referring to what? The donuts, the coffee, both?
There's 4 officers with 2 black, 2 white, and it's a dozen donuts, so clearly it has to be the coffee. Which I'm just going to assume to not be insane that it's going to be milk inside the coffie or some form of half-half, some sort of cream, just like a lot of it, but still no sugar, weirdly enough, as a sweetener. But yeah, no, it is. Yeah, black and white, never came up in Twin Peaks before.
And then Cooper invites Annie to join him on a nature study this afternoon, which is basically just a boat ride.
Yeah.
From what we can gather, at least. There's not a lot of nature studying happening in the scene we get.
We're going to study the nature of each other's faces.
Removing the romantic context, would you go on a nature study with Agent Cooper?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be a fun time. Annie herself,
He'll call every tree a Douglas fir.
It's very true. Annie herself agrees to this. Cooper then very bluntly says that he gets a tingly sensation in his stomach and his toes when he talks to her, which is either a disease that he should get looked into, or he's experiencing the love jumbles.
I get butterflies in the stomach, but how do you feel about toes?
I mean, isn't that song? Is it Colby Callier did that song where it talks about?
I don't know
Bubbly.
music.
Bubbly by Colby Callier. It has a part where it says it starts in my toes and then it goes to my nose or something. So yeah, it's a well-documented thing. At this time, Cooper, again, finally hears about the 3 notes about the Wyndham Earle poem.
Yeah.
Which we've already kind of mentioned, so you can gloss over that. Fast forward to the actual date/nature observation itself. They are at the water. I don't know if it's a river or a pond. I originally had it down as river, but I'm like, do I know it's a river?
It's the one place we go by the gazebo in which we want to talk about our feelings, whether you're Maddie and James or if you are Cooper and Annie.
What?
What do you mean what?
What are you referring to?
Like the time in which Maddie...
Oh, I understand. It's the same gazebo.
It's the same pond.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. No.
You're good point. This is where all people go when they're in love.
Whenever they need to talk about their feelings.
This is very true. I didn't even think of that. Genius. Annie says she used to come here all the time as a kid. She felt closer to nature than to other people. She never really had many friends. Norma was the popular sister, moving towards the world, while Annie was moving away from it into her own head and her own head space. She did have a boyfriend senior year, but when prompted about it, Annie doesn't want to talk about it. She much prefers if they don't. And she doesn't want to explain if it's connected to her going to a convent. At this time, those who are looking at the premium quality video format of our podcast that totally exists for loyal fans, you would see the professor staring at me right now with his hands cupped around his eyes as though they were goggles.
Yeah.
Could you please explain, Professor, what would prompt you to do such a thing?
Oh, I'm just watching.
Just watching?
Just watching.
Some people go bird watching. Some people go love bird watching.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great to love bird watching your fishing clothes.
As this stalker is proceeding to observe them by the name of Wyndham Earle.
We don't know if it is. He's disguised as have different names. So his name is Meat Partel.
Yeah.
No affiliation.
Meat.
Meat Partel.
It's a horrifying name. I know what
He's
you're
a
doing.
horrifying man.
That's fair. That's fair. A very notable quote is said during this conversation where they go back and forth on the boat, and Annie says that hiding from your fear doesn't make it go away. Cooper then finishes the sentiment saying it makes it stronger.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe if he keeps kind of like not dealing with Wyndham Earl, he's only going to get stronger.
Inside you, there are two wolves. Anyway, Annie says that she had to face it. She had to face herself and where everything went so wrong, and that seems to have prompted her return to Twin Peaks away from the convent.
Yes.
Again, I would love to hear more and know more about this. If there was more Annie material, I would love an Annie book.
So we're not going to get in any episode?
I can't guarantee, but I will say again, there's more things that I wish to know that aren't explained.
Okay.
I think I can say that, and if I say any more, then I run the risk.
You hear that, everyone? Not all answers are solved by the end of Twin Peaks.
This is running out of time already. We are running desperately out of time. Cooper knows what this feeling of hopelessness is like. He says, I know about the dark tunnel you can fall into. And he said that something similar happened to him, likely alluding to the Caroline incident.
Caroline.
Yes. That made him want to disappear from the world, and he thinks that maybe he can help Annie as a result of that. And then, as though a crustacean had appeared and said, kissed a girl, some smoochy happens on the boat.
Yep, they kiss and to put their faces together, I think twice. Once or twice.
What do you think about the immediacy of this relationship, the quickness of the kiss? Do you feel like this relationship is rushed? Or do you think, they're adults, they consent, it's one of the most normal things that's happened in the show regarding dating?
Well, whenever it comes down to, relationships or just emotions.
Welcome to the Professor's Love Corner.
It is never up to me. And
it's always up to the Professor.
It's not up to me. I would have to look them both in the eyes and just let them know that it is just you.
The question is, did they
in
leave
the
enough,
all sense?
Did they leave enough room on the boat between themselves for Jesus?
No.
That's the real question.
No, it's not.
Gotta leave a few feet for Jesus.
No, Jesus is not here in Twin Peaks.
Jesus is everywhere in Twin Peaks. Annie says that, she doesn't really know Cooper that well, but she's trying to learn to trust her instincts. And her instincts are telling her to trust. And as we linger on that thought, the music gradually becomes more ominous. As we step away, the camera kind of zooms away. And I really like that from a filming standpoint, the film language, that we get these close-ups that we're kind of just meant to believe are just those two in an intimate moment.
Yeah.
But the moment that the camera goes from a distance shot and the music changes, it implies they're being watched.
Yep.
And I like how that can be conveyed without a single word being said. The director didn't have to go and say, they were watched. It's a nice subtle way of handling it. And then obviously we do see the watcher himself, Wyndham Earl, and he's got a little smirky face as they pass the gazebo.
Some would call it a smirk.
Some would call it a smirk. I call it a smirky face. You mentioned by the end here that you would hypothesize who is going to be the next person to die. Who's going to be the one that Cooper knows? Have we reached that point where you can say that answer?
I think that it's probably going to be whoever wins the competition at Miss Twin Peaks.
Who do you think that's going to be?
And I think that the hardest part is that it keeps alluding to Shelley being involved more than any other character. So it is a strong competition between Shelley Johnson and Lana Milford, who has a little bit of an ace up her sleeve called Milford.
I like to believe that Dwayne Milford's nickname is Ace.
Sam Cummy, Ace!
I really wish they could have had a fourth guest judge. We could have had Clinton Sternwood, come back to complete the group of old grumbling men. I
wish that they would include someone who is a guest inside the town, someone who is pretty reputable in his own sense of business.
Dick Tremaine?
Whether it's construction or not, but also just cares about the environment, as we see that it seems the judges are pretty cool with that idea. And that person's name is Jack, which is his referred to name.
John Justice Wheeler.
I mean Jack, because he says call him Jack.
Well, we do get some encounters happening between him and Cooper here, where they are having a fireside chat. John Justice Wheeler pulls up a chair next to Cooper and just says, as though I don't think they've ever actually exchanged words before.
Yeah, no,
he
this
just
moment
says, love is hell.
I think that it's specifically so that these two characters can have a conversation.
Could you imagine if you were in Cooper's position, just at a hotel, at a fireplace, just taking a drink, and someone just sits next to you and just looks at you and says, love is hell, unprompted?
Yeah.
How would you respond?
That's how I'd respond.
Then what?
take another sip of my drink.
So you would agree? Do you agree with the statement?
Love is love.
Cooper says the Hindus say love is a ladder to heaven. Do you agree with that statement?
Love is love.
Earthly love, when you're in it, feels like there's no other kind. Would you agree with that statement?
Love is love.
Love makes you feel all other emotions more, especially pain. Would you agree with that statement?
Love is love.
Would you agree that John Justice Wheeler is roped, tied, and branded?
No.
No? Why not?
He is probably more free than anyone else is, and he is just getting caught a little bit to...
Free physically, but not from his own emotions.
Not from his own emotions.
And the connections that are tethering him.
No, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily call it a full-on tether. I think that there is something in which has struck him, and perhaps there's mild bindings, but he definitely has the freedom to at least go off somewhere, as we see by the end of this scene, in which he is called away and he is going to be checking out while Audrey is also away.
Would you say then that Cooper has felt like he is taking a crowbar to his heart, but that his heart has been locked away long enough?
I feel like I'm being interrogated on the concept of love here, and I don't know why.
Because you say love is love, and that's all you're saying.
I'm saying that because love is something incredibly complex with two different tones going back and forth. One seems to be more astute and accepting on the very quality of love itself, and the other one seems pretty caught up in the overall pain that it can bring. So I say that with the various complex emotions, it is neither one or the other. It is based on the scenario you find yourself in.
What did you think of the scene overall?
Overall, I thought it was a fun bickering scene.
I wouldn't call it bickering, would you?
Whenever I refer to a bickering scene, it's a scene that I can see not in there in its completed sense. Like, it is something which it's for two people to talk to one another, and it is something that will only be valuable dependent on the person. Like, I don't think bickering is a bad thing. I think conversation can give a lot to individuals, but it's still just them having this spur of the moment conversation nonetheless.
Yeah, to bicker, I just looked it up, is to argue about petty or trivial matters.
And these are arguably trivial matters as far as emotions and love goes, especially with how quick Cooper is able to sort of turn all of Justin's Wheeler's
Justin's Wheelers.
all of Jack's problems on their heads in a new perspective.
I don't think he actually does that. I guess maybe we're reading the situation different. I don't think that he turns it on its head. I think it's commiserating.
I think that turning on the head as in a coin, we're seeing two different sides to a coin.
To be the phrase turning on its head would imply that Cooper gave him a brand new insight. I don't think he did. I think he just more shared in this experience that they both are experiencing as well.
Shall I say turn on its tail then?
I don't know what that implies in this situation.
Turns on a coin.
You just want to turn.
Flip.
You just want things to turn. And flip.
I've always imagined that it meant the coin metaphor.
Okay,
so.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting conversation. I enjoy how they never bring up the name of the women. Obviously, there's that underscoring element that Cooper had an interest in Audrey. So in a weird way, he's like passing on the torch.
Have you ever talked about like vague relationship things or just like talked about a person to another person? I feel that whenever you talk about your emotions about a person, names don't really ever come up.
No, I'm not saying it needed to. I understand the realism that they wouldn't bring up the names. I also think it's weird, though, in general, to sit down next to someone and just say love is hell unprompted. But
Jack has the voice to have those conversations.
Of course, and he saw the way Cooper was looking into the fire, and he took a jump on it thinking, I think this man gets it.
I think I can walk with this man with fire.
With fire, yes. So I don't know. I like this situation. I like the unspoken element of it, that it's almost Cooper passing on the torch about Audrey, that although Cooper doesn't know it, he's commiserating with someone who's been wrapped around a woman that Cooper had previously felt things for.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting element as well. And I think it's a nice way for these two characters to interact who normally haven't had a chance to interact. I like the scene.
Yeah, no, it's a very not only nicely shot, nicely acted scene. It's just quality. It's quality convo.
Quality convo. Are there any other quality thoughts you have on this quality episode before we proceed to our wonderful and strange question of the week?
How many? I'm afraid, but no. We only have so many episodes left.
Do not go in with fear.
Yes, I will.
You must approach it with a steadfast heart, or it will utterly annihilate your soul.
If I do not approach with fear, I'm not being honest with myself. So is it not that I must embrace my fear as well, instead of deter it away?
So tell me honestly, Professor, in this wonderful and strange question of the week, I know that you like to cosplay, and you have gone to conventions in this past.
Yeah.
If you were to ever go to a Twin Peaks festival or any event, and you were to cosplay as a Twin Peaks
Don't
character...
say that, because there was one.
There still will be in the future.
I hope so, but I thought CBS shut it down.
That was a different one. That's not all of them.
Oh, okay.
There's been several different ones.
Okay, I hope some
My point is,
then.
it wasn't
post-COVID.
I don't know if it was CBS either. It might have been okay. Anyway, which Twin Peaks character would you most enjoy cosplaying as if you were to go to a convention dressed as a character from the show you've met?
What if I said an owl?
I am open to any answer you have to offer. Is that your sincere answer?
How would one dress as a fish in a percolator?
You tell me. You're the one who does these things. I don't dress up. I don't go to social events.
I don't think I could really cosplay many of the characters for obvious reasons, mostly beard related. And I also find an interesting...
You could shave.
I also find it interesting to choose live action characters too, also because these are also just people. But if I had to, I like myself a nice suit. I could go pre or post Cooper.
Would you shave for it, or would you be bearded Cooper?
Beard Cooper.
Bearded Cooper? Who even has beards in this show?
No one has. Oh, wait.
Philip Gerard, the one-armed man,
does.
but I don't know if you want to be a one-armed man.
And I just don't know whether or not that is necessarily good.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too.
Yeah.
Who
He's a
else?
great character.
Is there anyone else that has a beard?
We got Toad with a beard. We've got Pete with a mustache. We've got Philip Gerard with a beard. Not many beard options still.
I think you got to be Toad. You got to go to a Twin Peaks convention as Toad.
I don't think I could pull it off.
Why not?
He genuinely, I say that his overall movements and expressions, I don't think I could mimic as well. And I think that's be very important. Elsewise, I'm just a guy who is wearing a bunch of woodsy clothing in which it looks like I'm ready to go camping.
Just dress as the owl then.
Just the owl.
Very good, very good.
Just owl for Welvo.
Any final words?
And as usual, thank you for taking your time and sampling this podcast. So why not just dip your nose deep inside of our voices and take a good whiff?
What's he selling? What are you selling?